If you're studying for the math section of your ACT test, this is the perfect series for you. On the ACT website, act.org, there is this practice test, which is 5 sections with each being 12 questions, so a total of 60 questions. Today, we're going to look at set 3. Check out the links in my bio for the other sets. So in this first question, we're looking at a clock. All right, just a typical 12-hour clock, and it reads 1 o'clock. So if we were to draw that, you're going to notice my 12's at the top, my 1 is the next one, so it's going to create this little angle or piece of the pie here. All right, we know there's going to be 12 of those total to make up this clock. All right, so if I know a clock or a circle is 360 degrees, and we know there's going to be 12 sections of them, we can divide that by 12 to figure out that each section is going to be 30 degrees, which is option B. Moving on to number 2, we have some options here. So this is a probability question, and we have this set of numbers, and we want to know the probability that it's divisible by both 2 and 3. So I'm first going through and figuring out which of these numbers are divisible by 2 and 3. So we have 12, we have 72, and 108. Those are the 3 numbers out of those 8 that are divisible by both 2 and 3. So I have a 3 out of 8, right? There's 8 total options, chances of getting a number that's divisible by both 2 and 3. So G. Our next question deals with circles. You need to know that the circumference is 2 pi r. They should give you on the sheet though, so you could just look it up if you don't know it. And they're telling us that it equals 16 pi. So we want to solve for the radius here. Notice those pi's are going to just cancel each other out, right? If we divide both sides by pi, those are just going to go away. And then to get rid of that 2 with the r, we're going to have to divide both sides by 2 to get that our radius is 8, which is option C. And moving on from circles to rectangles, number 4, they tell us the perimeter is 30 centimeters. So we know if we add up all the sides, those 2 lengths, added up with the 2 widths, it's going to equal 30. Now we also know it's twice as long as it is wide. So if we take our width times 2, that should equal our length. Now I know my length is 2w, so I can replace my length with 2w in that original equation because we know it means the same thing. All right, 2 times that 2w will get 4w, plus the 2w that was already there is going to get us 6w. And then to solve for w, or our width, we divide that 30 by 6 to get 5. Right, now that we know our width, remember our length is going to be double that, 2 times that. So our length would be 10. But they don't care about the length or width, they want the area. So we need to multiply those together, 5 times 10 to get 50, which is option G. For number 5, we're going to the coordinate plane, so you could graph both of these points, draw a line, and then try to find where that point would be exactly in the middle, or you can just find the middle of your x's, the middle of your y's, and there's your point. So to find the middle, you can just add them up. So I added up my -3 and 7, and then divide it by 2 to find that midpoint. I'm doing the same thing with my y's, 0 plus 4, divided by 2, to find that my midpoint would be where x is 2 and y is 2, so option A. Number 6, we have some points on a line, and whenever possible, I always draw a picture. I'm a very visual person. So we have these points A, B, C, and D, and they tell us from A to B, it's 6 units. They tell us from B to C, it's twice that distance, so 6 times 2 would be 12. And then from C to D, it's twice the distance from B to C, which we said was 12. So from C to D, it would be 24. Now they want to know the distance from the midpoint of BC to the midpoint of CD, which if you notice the midpoint of BC, if I split that up, each side is going to be worth 6. And then if I split up CD, each side is going to be worth 12. So from that midpoint to my other midpoint, we have a length of 6 and then a length of 12. So if we add that up, we get a total length of 18, F. Moving on to 7, we're just ordering these things from least to greatest pretty much. So they tell us n is less than a. Then they tell us that c is greater than a, so that would mean a is less than c. And lastly, they tell us b is greater than c, meaning c is less than b. So I got my stuff in order here, and I'm just going to go through. Right? A is greater than n, not the other way around. B, so my biggest number minus my smallest number, is greater than my second to smallest number minus my smallest number. I would go ahead and say, yeah, that's correct, but let's check the others. All right, it says B is less than n. Nope, B is greater than n. N plus B is equal to A plus C. Well, they don't really give us enough information for that. And same thing with E. We don't know the actual values, so we don't have enough information. So we get the answer B. Moving on to 8, we're calculating GPA by using percents. They tell us A is worth 4 points, and we also see in that chart that 70% of our grades is A's. So I'm going to get 70% of that 4 points, right? I didn't get 100% A's, that would be a 4.0. I get 70%. Then we're going on to B's, which are each worth 3 points. All right, notice this time I got 20%, so 20% as a decimal is 0.20. And lastly, my C's, I got 10%, so I'm going to get those points as followed. All right, so then I can just type this in my calculator or do it in your head. 70% of 4 is going to get us 2.8. 20% of 3 is going to get us 0.6. And then 10% of 2 is going to get us 0.2. Add those all up to get the 100% total, which would get us a GPA of 3.6, option H. Moving on to number 9, it's pretty much just recognizing patterns. So we have the difference, meaning if we subtract, between 1.8 and then this repeating decimal. So I just kind of wrote it out because we know that's going to be 08 repeating forever. So I just wrote it out a few times to try it out and try to see if I could recognize the pattern. From here, it's just a simple subtraction problem. So I went all the way down to my last 0. And then once I started subtracting off, I did notice there was a pattern. Okay, it was my mistake this first time. I thought it was just the 8 repeating, which will give you one of these options here, but notice it's the 08 repeating, right? When I did this, I noticed a pattern of that 1-9 just repeating over and over, so that would be option C. Right, number 10 has to do with writing an equation from a chart. So they give us this chart here with the time, 0, 1, and 2, and then what our velocity is at each of those times. Notice whatever our velocity is at 0, that's what's going to be getting added on. The plus whatever, it's going to be plus 120. And then notice each time it's going up by 32. So that's what our variable t is going to be getting multiplied by, because each time that's going to go up another 32. So we have that 32t plus, when t is 0, we want that to equal 120, so we have to have that plus 120, which gets us option G. In number 11, we're looking at ratios. So we have 3 secret ingredients, A, B, and C, and they're mixed in the ratio 2, 3, and 5, all right, by weight. So we want to know how many pounds of secret ingredient B are in 42 pounds. So that's the total, 42 total. So we want to know the B part if the whole thing is 42. Now notice if I'm just looking at that original part, if I were to add those up, that is out of 10. So our B is 3/10 of the total mixture. So how many 42nds would that be? So we can just set up a proportion, 3 over 10 equals x over 42. And then you can do your cross multiply and divide. So 3 times 42 gets us 126. So 126 equals 10x, and then we got to divide both sides by 10 to get 12.6, which is our option B. And our last question, it's a little tricky, but it is just looking at exponents. So first of all, they tell us n, so I'm going to start by going ahead and plugging that in and see where that takes me. So instead of n, I'm replacing it with 8, which 8 minus 8 is going to get us 0, which anything to the 0 power is just 1. All right, so then we still have this 16 times 2 to the m, and we're trying to solve for m, so we want to divide both sides by 16. And so now I have 2 to the m equals 1/16, which tells me I'm going to have a negative exponent, right? That's how we get that fraction like that. 2 to the 4th is 16. So if I wanted to bring that to the top, we would make our exponent negative, meaning that m, our exponent, is -4, option F. Thank you for watching this video all the way through to the end. I hope it was helpful for you. If it was, please give this video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss more math videos from me.